And welcome back to another episode of the On the Sideline podcast with Jackson and Kyle. I am Jackson, and I'm joined here, as always, by the man who is very excited to talk a lot about the New England Patriots. Kyle, how are you doing?
Doing good. Yeah.
Reliving glory days, Kyle.
Reliving the glory days, indeed. I just want to say I did not come up with this show topic, so this was
Right.
not me.
No, this is my idea. Kyle, we have a lot. We have 8 total of our teams here.
Yeah, that's true. We've had a lot of success. Mainly me, but a little bit of you too.
Yeah, we little bit of the Buccaneers sprinkled in there.
Yeah. So yeah, this is gonna be a fun show, and last pretty much kind of off-season topic one like this before we get into some real stuff going on next week. So let's get into it.
Yeah, this is a full-blown off-season podcast. This is, there's no news, nothing. This is, in a way, a timeless show.
Yeah. This is a, we want to keep the viewers engaged. We got, sometimes you need, it's like it's like a bottle episode in sitcoms, not much is happening with the plot at this moment, but, we want to keep our viewers engaged and make sure they're tuning in for that week anyways.
Yeah, exactly. And of course, next week we will do our rankings of the top quarterbacks in the upcoming draft. Always, always a lot of drama comes out of those shows, Kyle.
Yeah, that is all of our draft stuff's hotly debated. Everyone has too hard a draft takes. This has been my opinion for years. I'm going to keep saying it. Everyone is way too opinionated on the draft. Because I don't know why people get so opinionated when they're like 50% right half the time, anyways. So it's like, I just don't get it. Anyway, but I'm looking forward to it.
Yes, but that's part of the fun.
Yeah, that's true. We get all bent up out of shape and then we're probably wrong.
Yeah, I was like Greg saying, I look forward to watching it again in the 22nd century. Yes, very good stuff. What we're doing today,
doing it in the 22nd century.
Yeah, that's true. What we're doing today is we will be doing. We're going to rank the Super Bowl winners of the 21st century. We were trying to figure out the exact cutoff. We're going to include the 99. 2000 Rams because they won the Super Bowl in 2000, even though the season was in 1999. But so, from that team forward, the past 24 Super Bowl winners, we're going to do it draft style. Kyle, do you want the first overall? I'll let you decide. Do you want the first overall pick here, or do you want to give it to me?
I mean, yeah, I could take the first pick. Why not?
Okay.
I mean, why not? I'll take it. Yeah, so
I have a question before you pick. Are all, yes or no, are the first 6 teams on your list all Patriots teams?
They're not all 6.
Okay.
No. But number 1 is a Patriots team.
Mm-hmm.
And so I guess that leaves a lot, that gives you 6 options.
Right.
We won 6 Super Bowls, just to remind the audience.
Yes,
Patriots won 6 Super Bowls this century.
Mm-hmm. You're having a lot of fun at this show. You're having a great time.
This is a great time. So, with all that said, the number 1 pick, best Super Bowl winner of the century, I'm going to go with the 2016 New England Patriots.
Mm-hmm.
This team finished the season 14-2. One of their losses was with Jacoby Brissett at quarterback. They played 4 games without Tom Brady, and this was just, I thought, the most dominant team throughout that season. Especially once Brady came back into the fold. And really the only thing holding Brady back from being an MVP that season was that he didn't play the first 4 games because he was suspended. And we really got to see for the first time what happens when the best player has just this tremendous chip on his shoulder to dominate everybody. And he did that this year. And I think people think of the one-off Super Bowl game where, yes, they did come back in 28-3. It was an iconic Super Bowl moment. They didn't look good in that first half. But this team was just really freaking good that entire season. They were first in DVOA. They were the number 2 offensive DVOA for the season. They were a terrific defense, too. Top to bottom, it was just a really good team. And this is my number 1 team of the century.
Yep, it's a great pick. They were number 2 on my board, so not quite number 1 for me. But I mean, this team had the best scoring defense in football. Also had the 3rd best scoring offense in football. 14-2 record. They lost by they lost by a yard in one of their losses, and as you said, Jacoby Brissett was the quarterback for the other of their losses. And I believe Brissett was even banged up in that game too. As Garoppolo had already gotten hurt as their backup. This was a loaded team from top to bottom. There's really not a bad thing you can say about them other than their first half against the Atlanta Falcons. I guess first 3 quarters.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, outside of that, they were, a borderline just really good team. And like you said, I just think that top to bottom, this was the best team. And Brady was the best quarterback that year. And he, at the end of the season, he got it done. And I just think, yeah, I take everything about this team and what they did, and I take it and stack it up against any resume from this century.
Yeah, I think that's fair. Although, let's just transition to the second one because I think this will be where we can have a discussion. My number 1 pick was the team that beat them the following year, the Philadelphia Eagles, who I think this was a team that was really loaded all across the board. And a team that was so dominant, they didn't just win a couple games with their backup quarterback, won a Super Bowl with their backup quarterback. Philadelphia Eagles, my pick here at number 2.
Yeah, I mean, I had them on the list. The interesting one was that I think their advanced analytics were a little lower because they ended the year without their starting quarterback. But yeah, I mean, they were another team that was just throughout the year. They were the best team. They looked really good in the playoffs. And like you said, they lost an MVP candidate quarterback who probably, if he was healthy, would have won the MVP that season. They lost him during the year, and they still, kind of steamrolled the playoffs and ended up, winning the Super Bowl. So, yeah, I mean, this was a really awesome team. I had them pretty high on my list as well. I had them set 8th, actually, but they're still in the top 10 for me. This is a really dominant team.
Yeah, and deciding between these can be difficult just because of they're all great teams. They're all Super Bowl winning teams. It is kind of a little bit difficult to find the differences between them. I just think this team was. I felt like every time you were watching Red Zone, all this, it's just, and here's another 70-yard Carson Wentz pass for a touchdown. Oh, here's this, here's that. There's the one of the all-time offensive lines in football, one of the all-time defensive lines in football, a receiving core that was really loaded. I certainly think this was maybe the most complete team. I think it's the most complete team we've seen in this century.
It's really hard not to debate that. I don't even know, what would be the weakness of this team when we looked at it. It's really hard to even find something that you could even debate because, like you said, even quarterback, they were good 2 quarterbacks deep. I mean, I guess you could say maybe their running game, but I think top to bottom, their running game still kind of made it work, even if Blunt wasn't like an elite running back. And at the same time, elite running back in 2017 wasn't that big of a deal. They managed to be a really good offense without it. So, yeah, I definitely think this is a team that deserved to be very high on the list. And like you said, if you're just stacking rosters, this roster is going to compete with anybody's.
Yeah, I think the one knock perhaps is just what we know about Carson Wentz now, but I don't think that's fair because he was great in 2017.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, he was really good that season. You can't hold 2022 Carson Wentz against 2017 Carson Wentz. He was terrific that season. They took advantage of his skill set. He obviously fell off after that, but it worked for that season, and it was really impressive. This is a good pick. I'm with you on this one.
All right, number 3, Kyle. Which Patriots team are you going with here?
No Patriots team. So I actually thought going into this that 3 teams were above everybody else.
Okay.
One of your teams wasn't on my list of the year. The Eagles weren't on my list. They were just below it. But I thought 3 teams specifically were my candidates for number 1. And this is my second one. And I'm actually going to go with the first team on the list, which is the 1999-2000 Rams. The greatest show on turf. Kurt Warner won MVP this season. They were terrific. One of their 3 losses was to the Tennessee Titans, the team they beat in the Super Bowl that year. And I mean, if you just look at this team, I know I sound really sick. I am, and I'm sorry. My voice sounds, nails on a chalkboard to everybody today. But if you look at this team and what they did this season, the gap between them and the number 2 offense in scoring was 83 points. The Washington Redskins at the time were number 2 in offense with 443 points. The gap between number 2 Washington and number 10 Green Bay was 86 points. So they were just a dominant offense at the time, completely steamrolled everybody, and they had a really good defense too. This was a really dominant football team, and I mean, they probably should have won in 2001, 2, won 2 out of 3, and been in that dynasty conversation. And this was just an amazing football team and a team that really was the greatest show on turf.
Yeah, this is a great pick. Yeah, they had the fourth ranked scoring defense on top of being the greatest show on turf. Everyone thinks about the offense, but they definitely had this loaded defense. The Titans Super Bowl was really one of the I still felt kind of one of the underrated Super Bowls in NFL history. I mean, it was an incredible game. I think people forget, well, the Titans were down, I think 16-3, and they came back and tied it. I think people forget that. And then Kurt Warner drove down the field and put them. It was really one play. It was an 80-yard touchdown pass that put them up 7 points, and then the 1 yard short play, which we all remember. That Titans team was really good as well. Yeah. Again, you're right. Completely loaded roster from top to bottom, and the MVP Kurt Warner leading the helm. Just an incredible team.
Yeah, and just to put it in perspective, in 1999, Kurt Warner threw for 4,353 yards, 41 touchdowns, 65% completion percentage. That was basically unheard of at the time. Not to mention Marshall Faulk was a 1,300-yard rusher. Just an incredible list of players when you go back and look at it on the offensive side of the ball, especially when you're looking at Isaac Bruce, you're looking at Torrey Holt. I mean, this was just a really talented offense, and obviously we remember the name, and it's a catchy nickname for it, but this was a legitimately amazing football team.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. I guess I don't know. I'm trying to think of what are the negatives you could say. I guess the negatives would be that kind of similar to the Patriots, they barely won their Super Bowl, but they still won it. So I don't know if that's a totally fair thing to say.
If the Titans had won that Super Bowl, the Titans are probably in the top 5 of this list too. So I don't think that's anything really to hold against them.
I guess you could argue got a little lucky with that call in the NFC Championship game against Tampa Bay. A little lucky. The Bird Emanuel rule that had become a rule because of it.
Yeah, I mean, if we want to go through luck for every Super Bowl, I'm sure we could do that too.
Right. No, you're right. This was the right team won. This was a completely loaded team. So many talented players throughout this. It's hard to argue against them.
Yeah. So, all right. Who do you got for number 4?
Number 4, I am going back to the New England Patriots. Well, here, Kyle, give me. There's several teams you could go with. I am going to go with the 2004 New England Patriots, the one that won the Super Bowl. I'm assuming this was next on one of your 3 as well. A completely loaded team. This felt like, Brady had really kind of come into his own at this point in 2004. I think, because again, the first couple of years, he was still very good, but he wasn't, this is kind of the first year I felt like Brady was a significant force. Certainly, the offense was a significant force at this point. If you're going to talk about the most complete teams, this is definitely one that is on the resume as on the, you could argue as well with the, number 2 overall scoring defense, number 4 overall scoring offense, 14-2, and then beat Philadelphia, in the Super Bowl. Again, a very good team.
Yeah, this was an amazing team. I remember this team very fondly. They went 14-2, like you said. This was the first year Brady was really Brady. And like you said, this team was actually number 4 on my list. But
Okay.
yeah, I mean, this was a loaded roster. I thought, Rodney Harrison was robbed of an All-Pro that year. And not to mention Tom Brady, this was also the addition of Corey Dillon to the offense this year. And he had 1,600 yards in the backfield as a running back. I mean, he was incredible this season. You just look at, between what Dillon was, what Tom Brady turned into that season, Teddy Bruschi, Rodney Harrison, Richard Seymour. That was a loaded roster with some legitimate superstars on both sides of the ball. And, capped off our 3rd Super Bowl in 4 years.
Right. It's kind of crazy to think too. I feel like typically when teams win these Super Bowls, in a row, it's almost like the last one, or just in general, when teams win a bunch of championships, you usually expect like their best year to be kind of the first one and then consistently get worse. The Patriots kind of both times, you could argue, had sort of the opposite of their best ones when they won 3 in a short period, were the last one.
Right. Yeah. I mean, this was this just was a, it's just, a lot of this had to do with how Brady grew into the role too, because
Mhm.
the year 2001, he kind of stepped into the fire and he managed the situation really well. But I mean, what was so incredible about Brady's career was how much he grew into the game and grew into the role. And I mean, literally got better with age up until like 45, which was amazing. But it was just incredible to watch that sort of growth year to year and then really turn into a superstar to starting this season, like you were saying.
Yeah. Let's move on. Number 5. Where are you going?
All right. So I had this number 3 on my list. Maybe the most dominant defense of all time, the Legion of Boom. Um, Give me the 2013 Seattle Seahawks on here. And not to mention that it was a dominant defense. They also had a really good offense that I thought was underrated that season. Like, I think we all just remember young Russell Wilson, so we're saying it's not as good. Russell Wilson was incredibly good that season. He had 26 touchdowns, 9 interceptions, 63% completion percentage. He had Marshawn Lynch in his backfield that was really good. He had a dozen touchdowns on the ground, over 1,200 yards. The effect of guys like Doug Baldwin, Golden Tate on that offense. But the real story of this team was just one of the best defenses in the history of the game, and probably the best secondary assembled of all time. When you're looking at Earl Thomas, Cam Chancellor, Richard Seymour, Bobby Wagner still at linebacker, KJ Wright at linebacker. This was just one of the most amazing defensive rosters you're ever going to see.
They were great. Definitely were great. I'm a bit lower on them than you were. I had them at 13 on my list. So I think this is their first
Okay.
real strong disagreement. I just think that, they were kind of the last team that like intentionally went into a season saying we're going to win by running the ball and play good defense and then won a Super Bowl that way. There would be another team who would do it, but that was kind of more by mistake than anything. The Seahawks, obviously, you're right. The defense was incredible. This is an all-time defense. The reason why I had him a little bit lower is I just don't view them as quite as complete as some of these other teams. Yes, the offense was still very good. It wasn't a bad offense, and that's why I still have them, sort of near the middle of my list. But I just think there's better, more complete teams on the list.
Yeah, no, I completely get it. One of the things I really looked for was dominance at a certain aspect of the game. And one of the
Mhm.
things, the 2016 Patriots dominant offense, 1999 Rams dominant offense, and they both had really good defenses. This was a completely dominant defense, and that's what I had it for in this spot. But yeah, I mean, I understand that, it wasn't quite the perfect mold of a football team, but at the same time, like if you looked at what they did to that Broncos team, that was the best offense. It was the best offense in the league against the best defense in the league. The best defense in the league completely destroyed them in that game. Won it 43-8. It was one of the most dominant Super Bowls ever. It's just hard to discount this defensive roster and unit as a whole.
Yeah, absolutely. You're right. They definitely the ending was they capped off an incredible finish. And I do think I still stand by Marshawn Lynch is the best running back I've seen play football. Listen. I didn't see Barry Sanders play. I don't. But what he was able to do. I mean, he legitimately. He was the main point of the offense. Wilson was fine. Wilson was solid. Wilson, you're right. Wilson was good that year. But Marshawn was the guy that this offense was built around, and he was unbelievable.
Yeah. Yeah, he was I mean, just the physical takeover ability he had, right? Like he could, just carry a team on any given play. It was just it was an amazing thing that he was able to do with this team. And yeah, I give him all the credit in the world for that because they constructed an offense around him and also helped their defense to stay elite.
Yeah. Let's move on. Number 6 is okay. Maybe a homer take. I don't know. 2020 Buccaneers they're a weird team to put. I'm going to put him here at 6. Maybe I'm being a homer, but they're just a weird team to pick because their overall like stats that year don't really justify them being here. Although again, still good. 5th best scoring offense, 8th best scoring defense, or excuse me, 3rd best scoring offense, 8th best scoring defense. But the reason why I'm putting him here is because of the way that they sort of got better as the season went on. And while they went 11-5 into season, I think that when it came to the end of the season, they were significantly better than that record would indicate. And that, again, Tom Brady at the height of his powers with Chris Godwin, Mike Evans, and at the time still, playing Antonio Brown, not to mention Rob Gronkowski and playoff Lenny. The weapons are one of the best weapons groupings in football. And in the 2020 NFL, where it's so important to throw the football, That's really what matters a lot. Not to mention the defense. That was, again, you talk about how the Seahawks were able to shut down a great offense. The Buccaneers defense did a very similar thing. That's why I have them here at number 5 on my board, 6th overall. Kyle, am I just being a homer?
I don't think you're being a homer. I will say, so I did the DVOA rankings for all these teams just for their respective season, right? And how they matched up with the teams in their class. The DVOA and the advanced numbers love this Buccaneers team. They were second in DVOA in 2020, third in offense, fifth in defense. And I think, like you were saying, that like at their best, this Tampa Bay team was really, really good. The problem is we didn't see their best until week 14. And then they
Right.
won 8 in a row on the way to winning a Super Bowl. So that's when they got really impressive. But we do remember the games against like the New Orleans games twice and
Hmm.
stuff like that, where it seemed like there were times they were struggling. But when this team put it all together and kind of dominated, they dominated and looked really good. So I think you can make a real argument for them as one of the better teams of this century. Um, you know, New Orleans kind of having their number in the regular season, I think, brings it a little bit into question. I had them 12th overall, but I do think, at their best, they were a really impressive team and could stack up with a lot of these teams.
They did beat the Saints, though, in the playoffs.
They did get them. They did finally
Hmm.
get them. Um, all it
But
took
you're
was
right.
a
No,
fumble.
it's. I
Yeah.
mean, again, if we're talking about, it's hard to. They're just a hard team to pick. You can argue they should be bottom 5. You can argue they should be top 5. It depends on what are you viewing it. Are you viewing it just as their ceiling, like I am, or are you viewing it as the entire body of work of that season? In which case they deserve to be lower.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. And like I said, they were really impressive. And then you look at, the roster, if you're going to take the talent of the roster, if you're taking one game from a tight end, you're probably taking Gronkowski. Even at that age, for one game, he could be dominant, just as the
Mhm.
Chiefs in the Super Bowl. You got Browns, Evans, and Godwin out there. They can do anything. Scotty Miller, as a one-off deep
Right.
shot. I mean, it was a really impressive roster on both sides of the ball. The last good Devin White season,
Yeah,
you
I
know,
mean, well, right. Yeah, Devin White in the playoffs. I mean, he made some legitimately impactful. Like, again, we talk about him as kind of all he does is make splash plays, but it seemed like every playoff game made a splash play.
Yeah, he really did. I mean, Mahomes was running for his life from him in a lot of that Super Bowl too.
Yeah. Yeah. Definitely, I think belong. And again, Chiefs winning 2 Super Bowls in this stretch, I think, helps the Buccaneers argument more, similar to how like the Eagles beating the Patriots helped their argument.
Yeah, yeah, I think that's a fair point. Yeah, I mean that's a good call. I think they could really be argued for that.
Yeah. All right. Number 7. Where are you going?
All right, fifth on my list, seventh on the board now. I'll go ahead and take them. Our most recent champions. That's going to be the 2022 Kansas City Chiefs. Um, there's just something about dominating from the beginning of the year to the end of the year that I really appreciate. This team came in as one of the favorites to win the Super Bowl. They finished fourth in DVOA, first in offense. And yeah, just from the beginning of the year to the end of the year, they looked like the best team. And I thought they were the best team for most of the season, or at least close to it. And they looked the part for the entire year. And I thought the most impressive thing was not only did they have the best quarterback in the league, MVP Patrick Mahomes, but they were able to solve the defense that, you look at this past season, what everybody did. Everybody wanted this deep line defense to take away big plays, splash plays that have become the norm in the NFL. The Chiefs found a way to basically, throw a wrench into all of that, and their offense became incredibly successful because they beat what every defense was trying to do. And now we're probably going to see a new change in defenses to try and stop this Kansas City offense that's beating all these deep line defenses.
Another team that's, you're right, incredible team. Agree with everything you said. I had them at 13 on my board, so a little bit lower, simply because defense was spotty at times.
Yeah.
The offense made up for it, and you're right, it's 2022. Who cares about defense at this point? So maybe I'm being too harsh on them, but that's the only reason I had them lower. You're absolutely right. Again, this is a loaded team once again. Mahomes really is this team. I mean, Mahomes is the heartbeat of this team,
Yeah.
but that's not fair to hold against him because he's so awesome. Although I do have
Yeah.
to say, this was not the highest Chiefs team I had on this list.
Yeah. So that'd be the interesting thing is because, like, I think if you stack talent, like if you just looked at roster by roster comparisons, you're probably taking the 2019 Chiefs over this one because of the talent. But I think this was the best Mahomes season ever.
Hmm.
And I thought he
Well, I
was
mean, this year or his first year, you could argue, but this year was probably his most complete year. Like
Yeah.
I get what you're saying.
Yeah, and I thought, like you said, he legitimately carried this team. And
Hmm.
the reason why this offense worked because he was willing to do everything that it took for this offense to be successful. So I do think like you could stack the talent on the 2019 Chiefs roster and say it's better than this roster, but with the Mahomes factor and the experience that he got from the past couple of years, learning how to beat this defense and coming into this season, I thought it was an impressive run for him.
I think the 2022 Chiefs season meant more for the Chiefs and for like the dynasty aspect and for Mahomes. I do have the 2019 Chiefs ahead though. They're my next team going here at number 8 on this list. Because of just what you said, I think they had a better defense this year in 2019 than they did in 2020, and they had Tyreek Hill. I think it's a fair point about they could beat basically. They kind of were a team that I think in 2019 would be more capable of blowing out a bad team than they were in 2022. But I think that you're right that the 2022 Chiefs were kind of built to be able to beat any kind of defense. Maybe the 2019 Chiefs had a weakness that hadn't been exploited quite yet, but still this was a loaded team. I mean, they were still the fourth and 15, or excuse me, third and 15 play against the Niners in the Super Bowl. This team kept going down double digits in the playoffs and kept finding ways to crawl out. It's Steelers' choice with these Chiefs teams, but I have them here number 8 on our list.
Yeah. It was amazing how like comparable I thought these two teams actually were. Despite the
Mm-hmm.
fact that they're both the Chiefs and they're both have Patrick Mahomes, Andy Reid and all that, it was just like it felt very similar at times, but at the same time, like you were saying, you mentioned those double digit comebacks all the time. This was kind of the Chiefs team that felt video game-esque, right?
Uh
Whereas
huh.
like it doesn't matter the score, it doesn't matter the down, the distance, the Chiefs are probably going to find a way to make it work. And it's just that was kind of the height of this Kansas City, run that they've had where it's just like it doesn't matter what you do to this team, they're not being stopped because of the talent on this team, because what Mahomes is and how new and fresh and interesting this all is. That's kind of what we all thought of this Chiefs team at the time. It's just like it doesn't matter what we do, they're going to be successful.
Yeah, I think one thing you have to hold against them was the record 12-4, not one of the more dominant records. I think there's teams still on this list that did better, but again, Mahomes is hurt for one of those losses, and you also have the factor of with the Chiefs. What was I going to say? Just Mahomes is hurt, and then also they kept falling down in the playoffs.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's completely fair.
Hmm. All right, well, number 9, where are you going?
All right, this one might be a little bit of a hot take, but I have this team at number 6. Um, they didn't have the best record. They went 10-6 for the season, but it's going to be the 2010 Green Bay Packers for me.
Hmm.
This team analytically graded out incredibly well. They were the second best scoring defense that season and top 10 in offense. This wasn't quite peak Aaron Rodgers, but it was really, really good Aaron Rodgers and a really good offense. And then they really just kind of ran into a lot of bad luck that season. All 6 of their losses in the regular season were by 4 points or less. Like, this was a team that was either in every game or dominating every game. And then they ended up going on and winning the Super Bowl because they were that good that season. And really, their expected wins were basically of a 12-4 team. They just, ran into some bad luck in the regular season, managed to put it all together for a playoff run, won the Super Bowl. I had this Packers team here. This was a good team.
Yeah, I think it's a bit hot, but I had him at 11. I still had him in the top half of my list as well. Charles Woodson was on this team, but that was kind of an interesting thing. If he was there, you're right. This defense was really good. You had AJ Hawk and Clay Matthews there. You had BJ Raji with the great pick six I believe that was Jay Cutler in the Bears. I forget who threw it, but in the Bears conference championship, and just so many receiving options. Like what Donald Driver, Greg Jennings, Jordy Nelson. Just so many players that they could just throw to the receiver or the running backs, like James Starks. Remember him? They had John Kuhn on this team. There's so many that guys on this Packers roster. You're right. The record doesn't do them justice. They were much better than the 10-6 record. Also, yes, I am salty. The Buccaneers should have made the playoffs. Bad call. Took them out, and we were robbed of Josh Freeman in the playoffs.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I just thought, the roster is incredible, like you said. And, it would have been interesting to see this defense with like 2013 Aaron Rodgers in like at their best, like because that's where this team maybe would have been one of the best ever. Because he wasn't quite at that point yet, but he was really close at that point.
Yeah, I completely agree with everything you said, Kyle. Well done.
Thank you.
Yeah. All right. Well, it's been a while since we talked about the Patriots. Gonna go back to the Patriots. Well, this time, still going to the early 2000s. The 2003 New England Patriots make my list here, make the list at number 10. Again, just one of these teams. Brady wasn't still fully Brady yet, but the defense was still incredible. Brady definitely showed flashes, like in that Panthers game in the Super Bowl when they were able to win. They went 14-2 this year, had the number one scoring defense, and had Tom Brady on the other side, who you knew would come through when he had to. 2003 Patriots, top 10 on the list.
Yeah, this was next on my list too. This was a really good. This might have been a better defense in 2004. They were pretty close, but one of the things about this team was that they had a healthy Ty Law. So you had an All-Pro Ronnie Harrison season. You had a really good Teddy Bruschi season. You had an All-Pro Ty Law season, a Pro Bowler in Willie McGinnis, a All-Pro Richard Seymour season. You also had guys like Mike Vrabel, Tyrone Poole, Ted Washington. I mean, this was an incredibly loaded roster top to bottom on the defensive side of the ball. Asante Samuel was 22 years old this season. He didn't even play. He still had 2 interceptions. It was the beginning of what became a long and very successful career for him. I mean, just looking at that roster top to bottom on the offense, that was incredible. Then you still have, your typical Brady, Kevin Falk, Troy Brown, Deion Branch, all of these guys on the offensive side of the ball too. This was a really good team, 14-2, dominant throughout the season.
Yeah, had Cliff Kingsbury on his team as well.
Yeah, that too.
Yeah, so here you go. No, yeah. Again, I don't know how much we need to dive into it with the differences, but similar to the 2004 team, maybe not Brady. I think the being the difference, but still a very good team.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I mean, we've done a lot of Patriots stuff, so we can end it with that. But you ready to move on?
Yeah, number 11.
All right, this was number 8 on my board. Let's go with your boys here, the 2002 Tampa Bay Buccaneers, a defense that was number 1 in defensive scoring, gave up 12.3 points per game. Just 12 points per game. I mean, it was just an incredible defense, dominant from the start of the season. Derek Brooks maybe had one of the best linebacker seasons of all time that year. And it was just, when you talk about him, Shelton Quarles was a Pro Bowler. John Lynch was a Pro Bowler. Simeon Rice was an All-Pro and Pro Bowler. Warren Sapp was an All-Pro and Pro Bowler. I mean, this
Rondé
defense,
Barber.
it doesn't get much better than this defense right here. And then you also throw in, Brad Johnson had a pretty good year. It wasn't a great offense, but it was a good enough offense. And their defense was just dominant, so it didn't matter. So this was a really good team.
Yeah, Keyshawn Johnson and Mike Allstott rounding out the offense. The offense did enough, right? It was obviously a defensive-minded team. I think the offense even knew that. Obviously, this was the John Gruden, era. They had just traded for him. And you mentioned Derek Brooks. Derek Brooks, 5 touchdowns in 2022 as a linebacker. Insane.
Yep, incredible season for him. And I don't think he actually won Defensive Player of the Year either. Sean Merriman won it, so that was a mistake.
Yeah, but still, Brooks ended up. I think he felt all right after this season.
Actually, wait, I got that wrong. Let me see if he did win it. No, Julius Peppers won it, so that was a mistake too. I don't even care what Julius Peppers' numbers were.
Yeah, I don't care if he had 30 sacks. Brooks deserved it.
Yeah, that was a good team. That was a really good team.
Yeah, I think, again, the knock on them, I had them a little bit lower as well. Just the offense was not elite, but the offense was solid. The offense wasn't bad. It wasn't like this, they drug a terrible offense to the, to the Super Bowl. But definitely, this was a team that was built to win defensively. But in 2002, you could do that.
Yeah, it was very much the way to win football games at the time. And, advanced numbers again, number 1 DVOA team in 2002. So they were the best team from the start of the year to the end of the year. They were one of 5 teams in the century that won the Super Bowl and also first in DVOA.
Yeah. Raiders maybe could have changed the playbook prior to the Super Bowl.
Yeah, that would help.
Yeah, that might have been a good idea. Yeah, all right. Number 12. Well, been a while since we talked about the Patriots, so let's bring them back up. We're just picking each other's teams at this point. Number 12, I'm going to 2001 Patriots. Again, the offense wasn't quite there, but it was still a good offense. It was a better offense. I think still had, I think maybe better than people realize. It was sixth overall in scoring. So while maybe it wasn't all Brady, they were still putting up points. This defense was still very good. And again, beat the team that we have. Number 3 or at least top 5 on our list currently. So number 2001 Patriots. Rounding out the early 2000s Patriots.
Yeah, I had this one a lot lower. I had them at 20, but at the same time, the defense at the end of the day was what it was. I mean, it became an incredible unit by the end of the year. They really, this was the beginning of getting teams to buy into making illegal contact a penalty because they just beat the hell out of everybody. If you go back and watch that Rams game, they're just clocking guys at the line of scrimmage when the ball snapped, and that was the game plan, and it worked. So they won a Super Bowl out of it. A lot of turnovers created from this team. Brady was very young, very inexperienced. He threw for under 3,000 yards in 15 games, but he managed the games, and he was clutch in the last moments. That's when it mattered most, and that was the incredible part about that season. But yeah, I mean, this was a decent team, but one of the things is that they got pretty lucky to win the Super Bowl. I mean, if we're going to talk about luck to win the Super Bowl, I'm pretty sure they were outgained by 200 yards in the Super Bowl by the Rams.
Gotcha.
They just got crushed in that game, but the defense held up, and they almost got a defensive touchdown at the end too. And then the other part of it was the, if you want to go back to the tuck rule game, and that was part of it too, where the Raiders are probably thinking that was our Super Bowl bid, but. It was
the Steelers too.
Yeah, I mean, I think the Raiders are the most snake-bitten team from that year. I mean, they still have their portrait up of the tuck rule.
Yeah, definitely. Listen, I get it. I think one thing that is worth mentioning. Well, I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, I believe this team won the conference championship with Drew Bledsoe at quarterback because of Brady wasn't in that one. So again. I kind of valued the Eagles higher because they were able to do stuff with Nick Foles and do stuff without their starting quarterback. The Patriots had the greatest quarterback of all time and were able to win a conference championship against a great football team without their starting quarterback. That's impressive.
Keep in mind, Drew Bledsoe was $100 million quarterback at the time.
Yeah. Bledsoe's great.
Yeah, I mean, he was pretty good during those years. So, I mean, I get it. And like you said, it's the spark of the dynasty. They beat one of the best teams of all time in the Super Bowl, so that plays to something. But I had this one a little lower than some of the teams, and I had it as the lowest Patriots team, actually. But they were really good. And they got really hot in the second half of the season and turned that year around, especially, kind of galvanizing after the Bledsoe injury.
Yeah, because they started off 1-3. Obviously, the first 2 losses were, without Brady, and then that's kind of what I think as well. Is it feels like they became that early 2000s Patriots team towards the end of the year.
Yeah, they turned themselves into that juggernaut and then continued it in 2003, 2004.
All right, Kyle, number 13. Where are you going?
Let's take the last Patriots team off the board then. This was the superstar Tom Brady. This was a really good offense that could be elite at times. I'll take the 2014 Patriots here. This team, we talked about, beating teams that were dominant. This team took that 2013 Seahawks team that was one of the best defenses ever, and they beat it in the Super Bowl. And not only that, Tom Brady went 14-15 in the fourth quarter or something like that to win that Super Bowl against the Seahawks. Really just kind of eviscerated what was maybe the most, unbeatable defense ever. And he just eviscerated it in the last quarter of the game. They got some fortune, obviously, Malcolm Butler at the end of that one. But
that was a great play.
Yeah, I mean, he made a great play, and they had to come back all the way to be in that position to win it, too. So I'll take this team.
Yeah, I think they deserve credit for Malcolm, having a depth player like Malcolm Butler, and again, we like to make fun of Matt Patricia. Great coaching to set the situation up. It legitimately was. He'll let you know about it, but it was great coaching.
Yeah. He, he deserves some credit for that season. Deserves plenty of blame for last season, but it was top 10 offense and defense that season too. I mean, it was a really good team.
Yeah, you could argue this is the team where we could even be a bit low on because like you said, I mean like Tom Brady in the fourth quarter against the Patriots, one of the I think we even talked we did a debate of like is that better than 28-3 fourth quarter? I think we agreed on yes a couple years ago.
Yeah, I mean, that stretch was one of the best stretches of football he's ever played. I think the Patriots comeback was, you know, the team as a whole, and Brady was awesome part of that.
Hmm.
But this one was really him willing this team for victory. You kind of, that's as close as one NFL football player could actually go to takeover mode in the football game.
Yeah, I had Darrell Revis in this season as well.
Yeah, yeah, he was really good that year too. Him
Uh-huh.
and who was the other guy? Was it Brandon Browning? I think maybe not.
Potentially.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but it was a really good team.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's move on. Number 14 on the list. I am going with another dominant defense. You could argue the dominant defense. The 2000 Ravens are here at number 14. A team that, listen, there's the obvious negative of Trent Dilfer was the quarterback of this football team, but the dominance of their defense is what puts them here for me as so many talented players. And again, in 2000, you could win football games that way.
Yeah, I had them ironically 14th on my list too. I had them and one other team lumped together as like sort of the same thing. But yeah, gave up 10.3 points per game. That's the number one defense. Their offense actually was better than people remember. Like they
Hmm.
finished 14th in scoring that year. It wasn't like that Trent Dilfer was out there just handing the ball off to the other team.
Right.
You know, Jamal Lewis was also a really good back at the time, and their backup was Priest Holmes, who, turned into Priest Holmes, which was an elite running back right after this, too. So they had a really good running back room. I thought Dilfer was actually, he was whatever, him and Tony Banks, it was whatever. But you look at this playoff run, they gave up 3 points in the wild card game, 10 points in the divisional round game, 3 points in the conference championship game, and 7 points in the Super Bowl. I mean, it doesn't get much better than that as a defense.
Yeah, absolutely crazy. This team had Shannon Sharp as well. Can't forget about him when he did his brief 2-year stint in Baltimore. So have some talent on that offense as well. But yeah, again, this was one of the all-time defenses. Little known fact, they did not have Ed Reed this year, which is kind of crazy to think about. That they would shortly after this season get one of the all-time defensive players.
Yeah. Yeah, it was someone. Yeah, he was someone you kind of forgot about. The random assortment of guys that were on this offense that you didn't think about are kind of crazy because you attribute Jamal Lewis to the Ravens very much so, but like Priest Holmes being their backup running back, you don't really think about. Brandon Stokely being a wide receiver on this team, you don't really think about. Shannon Sharp, Ben Coates as a backup tight end is another guy. I mean, he was kind of old at the time, but another guy you don't really think about. It was just kind of weird of everybody who was on this team.
Yeah. No, it was a very fun one. Kyle, number 15. Where are you going?
Let me go with the 2009 New Orleans Saints. This was a fun team. This was an elite offense. Drew Brees was incredible this season. They were number one in scoring, averaged 31.9 points per game, which in 2009 was really impressive too. The defense wasn't as good, but they were really turnover. They got a lot of turnovers that season, and they turned it into points with their offense, which is something they were elite at. So it was just a really incredible year from this offensive side of the ball. And you look at, Drew Brees had a 70% completion percentage this season. You look at the number of guys on this roster, the contributing year, all the emotion behind that. And it was just a really impressive run to the Super Bowl. So give me the Saints here.
Yeah, again, what's crazy. This was the all-time Drew Brees year was 2009. I think this was his year because again, the numbers he was able to put up with the offensive, like listen, like Marquise Colston was a good receiver for them, but like him being the number one option and seeing Brees just completely dominate was incredible. Obviously, Tracy Porter had those key plays with the interception of Brett Favre, also the pick six in the Super Bowl. You're right. Opportunistic defense, maybe not a great one, but they got the job done. And this is the team that nearly, went undefeated this season. Also, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers beat them. So we got that going for us.
Yeah.
They
Darren
won like 3
Sharper.
games that year. It was the weirdest thing ever.
Yeah, beat this team of all teams. Darren Sharper
Uh-huh.
had 9 interceptions that season. He
Insane.
was an incredible player. I mean, yeah, I mean, it was a fun year, and obviously everyone was kind of rooting for them at the time. Plus, nobody wanted Peyton Manning to win. I mean, who likes Peyton Manning for real? So it was just it was an incredible season and an incredible team for them. And yeah, I mean, this was like you said, when we do this stacking of, when you rank your best quarterbacks of all time, I think the quick counter for Drew Brees when you put him in amongst the greatest was oh, well, Brees was never the best quarterback any season, when he was in the league kind of thing is something you could bring up. Well, this is the Brees season that Brees fans are going to point to, like you said. This was the year that he went up against Brady, Manning, and he outperformed all those guys and won his team a Super Bowl.
Yeah. And, I think you could argue Manning was better in the regular season, but then Brees beat Manning in the Super Bowl, and Manning didn't play very well in the Super Bowl. So the one argument you have there, I think Brees definitely wins it. Want to talk about teams that, beat the crap out of the opponent. No one did it like the 2009 Saints.
Yeah, that's definitely true. They love to give those hard hits, and they cashed out for them.
Yes, exactly. Hey, they made a Kevin James movie about it at least.
Yeah. Did you watch that?
No one watched that. Why would you watch that?
I don't know why. I was sitting around late at night and I watched it one day. Was
How was
not
it?
the best film I've ever seen. I gotta say.
Really? No.
No, it was not a strong film.
Okay. Well, maybe that could be an off-season podcast. Is reviewing the Kevin James Saints movie.
We'll just they won't even copyright it if we put it on. We'll just put it on in the background and have everyone watch along with us.
Yeah, they'll just be thrilled people are watching it.
Yeah, exactly. More viewers.
Yeah, exactly. Number 16, I'm going with the 2008 Steelers, a team that they're a weird team because their defense was amazing. Best scoring defense. Their offense was 20th scoring this year, which is not what you think about when you think about this team. But again, I thought Roethlisberger kind of, redeemed his last Super Bowl performance by a very good one, including, obviously, one of the all-time plays, really two of the all-time plays in the Super Bowl. You also had the James Harrison 99-yard interception. But this was a fantastic defense and an offense that maybe didn't grade overly well throughout the season, but I think was still very good.
Yeah, it was a good enough offense. And you look at Hines Ward, Santonio Holmes, Heath Miller. This was just, good players across the roster on both sides of the ball. But this defense, like you're saying, James Ferrier, James Harrison, Ryan Clark, Troy Polamalu, this was just a incredible group, and they'd been together for a lot of years too. And this was just it felt like prototypical Steelers, and they were a really good team, and they won maybe one of the most underrated Super Bowls of all time. This was an incredible game to watch, and Roethlisberger's made some big throws down the stretch to win that one.
Yeah, I think what hurts about this team is that this is another one of those. No one was rooting for the Steelers to win. Not that people hated the Steelers necessarily, but it's like, how would you not root for Kurt Warner and Larry Fitzgerald in that game?
Right. Yeah. Two really likable people, and going for their Warner was going for his last Super Bowl chance and all that kind of stuff. It was definitely not the team everybody was rooting for, but they were able to get it done in that one for sure.
Yeah, definitely. Let's move on. Why don't we? Number 17, where are you going?
I'll take, another elite defense. 2015 Denver Broncos. I mean, this team, if we're going to talk about the 2000 Ravens and the 2013 Seahawks, this defense stacks up with anybody. I still have nightmares watching this team, watching this defense. They knocked us out of the playoffs in a 2018 game. Peyton Manning couldn't throw the ball this season.
No.
He looked like he was throwing softballs out there. And this defense still dragged it to a Super Bowl because it was that gosh darn good. And so I will take this defense against almost anybody's. It was an incredible group with adding DeMarcus Ware to this team. And yeah, they were just a dominant defense on the way to the win in the Super Bowl.
Will we ever see a team after the 2015 Broncos win a Super Bowl with bad quarterback play consistently throughout the season?
Probably not.
Well, the funny thing too is, because I said the 2013 Seahawks were the last team to intentionally do this. They didn't go into the season thinking that Peyton Manning was going to be bad. Like, that's what's crazy about this team is if they just got one more good year out of Peyton Manning, we're talking about this probably number one on this list.
Yeah. Yeah, honestly, they were that close to that situation, but they didn't need it. They didn't need it because they had Von Miller, Aqib Talib, Chris Harris. I mean, you just look through this list top to bottom, and all of these guys are really good on defense. It was such an incredible year for that group. And like you said, they were expecting to have a good offense that season. They didn't, and they still managed to be okay.
Right. And, again, we talk about, who did you beat? Not that, again, it's not totally fair to say that because you play who you play. But still, this is a team that beat the New England Patriots in the conference championship game in what was an incredible football game. Came down to a 2-point, really came down to a missed extra point for this. And, CJ Anderson was great this season. Plenty of people were able to come around. Demaryius Thomas, Emmanuel Sanders, a lot of weapons. Didn't get to use them too often, but the CJ Anderson was a legitimate force when the passing game ended up not being there.
Yeah, and sorry, it was a good Brock Osweiler season too, and he managed to step in and make some throws. I mean, it was just it was a really weird season when we were expecting so much from this group, but outside of Thomas, Sanders, and Anderson, this offense just didn't have that much going for it, but they had just enough, and this defense, like you said, just dominant. I mean, if you're going to stack units from these Super Bowl winning teams, is this in the top 5 possibly?
Probably, especially because again, part of why they're a little bit lower on this list compared to some other teams is because in 2015 you don't win with dominant defenses, right? Like this is kind of we're kind of out of that era at this point, and they were still able to do it, which makes it just that much more impressive.
Yeah, it really does. So
let's move on. You mentioned that you picked the last Patriots team, but you were wrong. There was one Patriots team that still has yet to be mentioned.
Oh, yeah.
But so we haven't talked about the Patriots in a while. Let's talk about the 2018 New England Patriots. This was their 6th Super Bowl. I do think that the way that the Super Bowl went down kind of almost colors people's opinions of how this team was. This offense was not a bad offense. Like Brady wasn't great this year, but he wasn't bad this year either. Again, the Super Bowl notwithstanding, this was a team that still finished 4th in total offensive scoring. They actually finished better in offensive scoring than defensive scoring this year. I think people would be surprised to learn that. Obviously, this was one of the all-time coaching runs in the playoffs of beating the Chargers, Chiefs, and then Rams 3 straight games. The Bill Belichick masterclass against Jared Goff. Definitely kind of, I think one of the things you point towards him when you're talking about his greatness was this run. Listen, it's the last Patriots team on this list. There's probably the least amount of talent on this list, but there was compared to the other ones, but there's still plenty of talent involved. They go here at 18.
Yeah. The offense really cooled off towards the end of the season and didn't play that well in the playoffs, but at the same really, just didn't really play that well in the Super Bowl, obviously, but they scored 41 and 37 in their 2 other playoff games. So
right.
They did fine in those 2. But yeah, I mean, it was just it wasn't as dominant of the Patriots team as we've seen, but they just always found a way to get it done. And no matter what happened, it just seemed like this team was coming up big. And throughout that run, they just managed to keep finding ways to win, and they did it all the way to the Super Bowl. And it didn't matter how they were going to win, they were going to win. And that's what they did all the way until, like you said, they schemed a way into dominating Jared Goff in that Super Bowl.
Yeah. Sony Michel had a great year. Sony Michel, again, I know you feel like other running backs could have done what he did. Maybe it wasn't the best pick, but hey, at the time, you didn't feel bad about that draft pick.
Yeah, exactly. They, he was on the ultimate heater during that playoffs. I think he had. Is it still the record for rushing touchdowns in a postseason?
I don't remember. I don't know.
Or I don't even know if it's a record, but he was really good in that postseason. He did get it done. So it was a fun run for him, and the last of the dynasty, that's for sure.
Yeah, of course, we'd be dismissed if we didn't bring up the Stephon Gilmore. This was the year before he won Defensive Player of the Year, but he was dominant. Had the interception that kind of clinched it as well. So again, Kyle, was this if you were to rank how much fun you had watching each Patriots team, where does this one rank?
How much fun?
I have to imagine the playoff run was a blast as a Patriots fan.
The playoff run was stressful and a blast at the same time. I would agree with that. I would say the 2016 was number 1, just because the whole FU of it all,
right?
For all the Deflategate stuff and all that turning into a Super Bowl, that felt good. This one is probably up there as well, along with I was really young in 2001, but being the first one, that also always means something. So I would have that in 2014 pretty high, And then I'd probably have this one in the middle. And then 2003 and 2004, we just kicked ass. I mean, that was the thing to really like, is that they were just dominant football teams.
Yeah. Number 19. Where are you going? Finally down to Patriots.
Done with the Patriots. I can't pick the Patriots anymore. Gosh darn it. Let me go with the 2006 Colts here. This was
you love the Colts.
Uh,
You're a big Colts guy.
No, not a big Colts guy. But this was the number 2 scoring offense in football for that season. And really, like, the big thing with this Colts team was that it was a redemption team. Because, let's be honest, we're going to get to the 2005 Super Bowl winner here probably at the bottom or second to bottom. The Colts really blew it in 2005. I mean, let's just be honest. They were number 2 in offense in 2005. They were number 2 in defense in 2005. They went 14-2 that season. Manning was amazing in 2005. And they just kind of choked. They choked to the Steelers in the playoffs, lost 18-21 in that one. But they bounced back from that, go 12-4. And not only that, they get to the conference. The real story for this season was that the conference championship for the AFC was the Super Bowl for both of these teams. They played the Patriots in the conference championship. And for all this talk of, this was the first year that we really turned into Peyton Manning is a playoff choker. That Peyton Manning can't win the big games. That was what was the narrative in this one. And then it was also the Patriots own the Colts. That was the conversations heading into this game. Every Patriots fan was confident heading into this one. The Patriots take a huge lead in this game. The Colts storm all the way back, win this one 38-34, and then go win their first Super Bowl because the Bears were just like the stepping stone for everybody in this one at the end with Rex Grossman. But to be able to do that and have that redemption and then also beat the Patriots in that spot in that comeback fashion the way they did was a really impressive run. Even if, you could say probably the 2005 Colts were the way better team, this was a really good team, and they also still won.
Yeah. That conference championship, you're absolutely right. That's got to be the best game if you're a Peyton Manning fan of your life. Seeing that comeback. Jeff Saturday had a touchdown in that game, recovered a fumble in the end zone. Probably the worst game of your life. But
Not
for
quite,
people,
but it was up there.
yeah, I guess worst game of your life would be harsh. But maybe worst football game. But I don't know. It was but a great team, very fun team. Tony Dungy, one of the all-time dumb decisions of all week long. He said he wasn't going to kick the Devin Hester, and then had a dream or that I believe he said God spoke to him and said that he should kick the Devin Hester because in the Bible. You don't run away from your demons, and then Hester scores a touchdown.
Yeah. Tony Dungy, quite the guy. Anyways, so yeah, I mean, you look at that Patriots game too, and it was, like I said, the Patriots went up 21-3 in the second quarter. They kind of dominated the start of that game. Asante Samuel runs an interception back for a touchdown. They're up 21-3. The Vinatieri scores right at the end of the half to make it 21-6. And then it's basically all Colts from there. They scored 32 points in the second half to go and win this game 38-32.
Yeah. Also, how hilarious is it that we spent most of this still talking about the Patriots?
Yeah. As we do. You got to know who's hosting your podcast.
Yeah, exactly. If you didn't want Patriots talk, don't watch us talk about the ranking the top the past 24 Super Bowl winners.
Yeah. This one does hurt, but at the same time, the Colts got their redemption. It's fine. We beat them plenty of times, so I'm not that hurt about it.
Yeah, it worked out all right for Patriots fans. Number 20 on the list. So we have 5 left. I am going with the 2001 LA Rams, the one we just saw win a Super Bowl. This was a good team. I mean, they didn't have the dominance as these other teams, right? I think it's fair to say they probably weren't even the best. It was a weak year. There wasn't a great team in 2021, and they definitely were kind of elevated by star talent. Didn't have a ton of depth, but still, you got Aaron Donald, Cooper Kupp having one of the best seasons of receivers ever had, Jalen Ramsey at the height of his powers, and Stafford, who was playing at an elite level in that playoff run. The Rams, unfortunately, a bottom 5 team on this list, but still an awesome team. And they, added Odell, and he ended up being huge down the stretch for them.
Yeah. I mean, it really worked for them. They won 5 games in a row at one point after losing 3 in a row and us really questioning if this team was even going to be competitive in the playoffs. Won 5 in a row to turn it around. ended up losing their game. It didn't really matter in week 18, and then went on a run in the playoffs to be able to make it. And like you said, Stafford just went on a heater in the playoffs. He kind of turned everything around, and there was a stretch of the season where Stafford's game was called into question. His ability to win the big games and win down the stretch was called into question. He turned it around and turned in a really good season and turned in a Super Bowl for the team. They went all in with them, and he was able to do it. But yeah, this was a really good team. It just wasn't really dominant at one of anything.
Yeah, and obviously adding Von Miller too down the stretch really helped them. He was great in the playoffs as well. So that whole defensive line was just so incredible. You're right. They don't have the dominance. They weren't consistent, I think is the fair thing to say about them. But when they had to turn it on, and you think about who they beat too, having to beat the Buccaneers in Tampa, having to beat the 49ers who seemingly had their number, and having to beat the Bengals. That's no easy stretch. But they were able to pull it off.
Yeah. Maybe a little hard done by this list, but I still think, they were a really good team. And like you said, ended up Super Bowl champions. So that's all that matters.
Listen, better to be last on this list than best on the teams that didn't win the Super Bowl list.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah. Number 21. Where are you going?
Let's go the 2012 Baltimore Ravens. 10-6 team. They were, they got hot in the play. Joe Flacco got incredibly hot in the playoffs.
Mm-hmm.
That was the story this season. They managed to beat the Colts. They scored 38 on the Broncos. That was still a pretty good Broncos defense at the time. And then beat the Patriots 28-13 and then beat the 49ers in that incredible Super Bowl game. And it was really just they got hot at the right time of the season, because I think if you looked at this team at various points of the year, you did not say this was a Super Bowl contender, especially when they lost 4 of their last 5 to end the season. But they got hot at the right time, and that was all that matters.
Yeah, we're kind of at the point now where we're at the teams that, like, if they were going to play the season again and you didn't know what the field was going to be, and you asked, are they Super Bowl contenders? You'd be like, probably not. They have to get hot at the right time, and then they got hot at the right time. This is one of those teams. This was the last year of Ray Lewis. Ray Lewis announced he was planning on retiring, which is a great move. Guys should do that more often. Announce you're retiring in the middle of the season. I'm a big fan of that. There was the obvious one of the all-time great playoff games, the Miracle at Mile High of the Ravens down 7 in the final minute. Flacco throws a touchdown. Not the best defended pass by Denver in that one, and then not the best overtime period for Peyton Manning in that one. A rookie, Justin Tucker, kicked the game-winning field goal to send them to the next round, where they beat the Patriots and then beat the 49ers in what was a crazy game. You had Ed Reed getting his first Super Bowl win. They kind of had a team of destiny feel with those Ravens teams. Like, they deserved to win one. They just did. With all the weird, great runs they had that era, it's like, yeah, I'm glad they won one. Weird that it was this year, but they deserved one.
Yeah, I guess so.
I know you won't agree, but as just a fan of football, I was happy to see them get one.
Yeah. Once that Jacoby Jones play happened into a touchdown, I just felt like nobody was beating them at that point. And then the lights go out in the Super Bowl and they're still able to win. I mean, it was just a really weird postseason for this team, and they took advantage and they won.
Yeah. So, and again, you want to say, well, they didn't have the best record. They beat like the two teams of that era, right? They beat the Patriots and they beat the Broncos. You could say it wasn't each of those best teams, but that Broncos team was really good that year.
Yeah.
And they got multiple special teams touchdowns the Broncos did in that game, and the Ravens still won.
Yep. Yeah, they were, they beat the best teams, and, doesn't matter if you're the best throughout the season as long as you're best at the end.
Yeah. Have we ever seen a quarterback like Joe Flacco? No. We haven't, right? Just this complete, at best, mediocre quarterback who in the playoffs just turned it on and was like consistently significantly better than his regular season performances.
I guess what, Eli? Him and Eli are those are the two basically. And then Tony Romo is the anti. Right. Or I guess Phillip Rivers too is the anti Joe Flacco and Eli, just not his best at the end.
Yeah, I think maybe Peyton Manning might be the perfect anti.
Yeah, he did end up winning once, at least twice.
Mm-hmm. But even those years, it wasn't like, I guess so. Yeah, fair enough. We don't need to get too into that. 22, So this is so my
Your
pick,
pick.
my
Yes.
pick, 22. Am I partially doing this for humor reasons at this point? Perhaps. But give me the 2005 Steelers here at 22. The team that listen, like I said, I don't. You won the Super Bowl. The Super Bowl itself was, it was weird. It was a weird game beating the Seahawks, but I don't know. This is still a very good team. Third best scoring defense, ninth best scoring offense. They were a complete team, not a team with a lot of flaws. Not the best Super Bowl win from Big Ben. You could argue this was the worst, one of the worst Super Bowl winning performances by a quarterback. But hey, a win is a win, and this was still a very good team. They won the Super Bowl.
Yeah, they were solid.
Mm-hmm.
They were, like I said, the Colts blew it this year. They just did. I mean, I said it before, and it's probably a little unfair, but they just straight up kind of blew it this year, and that's what it was. I mean, Mike Vanderjagt missed a 46-yard field goal that would have tied the game in that one, sent it to overtime. They're down 21-3 at one point, and the Colts come all the way back, and then he misses that field goal. That was probably the difference between the Steelers winning and losing that Super Bowl. And then also, you talk about the refs things against the Seahawks, where the officials were just horrible in that game. It was clearly, nefarious, and it was just a horribly called game.
Sure, that I won't argue. I was just going to say, though, if we're going to talk about, luck, I mean, Jerome Bettis fumbling at the 1 yard line when they have the game basically locked up, that could have, and also not to mention that Troy Polamalu interception got called back in that Colts game. I mean, I don't know. It felt like the right team on that day won.
Yeah, I suppose. I mean, yeah, I guess the right team on that day, but they weren't the right team that whole season for sure.
No, they weren't. But neither were the Ravens.
Right. Yeah, that's fair.
Mm-hmm. I don't know. Come on, Jerome Bettis won. How can you not be happy with Jerome Bettis?
Yeah. I respect the Steelers. It's okay.
Yeah, Hines Ward, Antoine Randall.
Hines Ward's dirty. I don't want to hear it.
I'm not saying you have to like them.
Yeah, I guess so. Good for them. They won a Super Bowl.
They won 2. Were the mid-2000s Steelers a dynasty? People are asking.
No, they were not. Looking at those Ben Roethlisberger numbers, though, again in the Super Bowl is pretty insane, given that they ended up winning that game. But yeah, they won 21-10, and this is probably the right spot for this team on this list.
Yeah, and also with 2 teams left, both of the Giants teams managed to fall all the way towards the bottom of our list. Listen, better to be in this spot than me not be in this spot. Poor Giants fans. We're always hard on them. Which I have no issue with the Giants. I don't know why I feel like it just keeps happening. But Kyle, the 2007 and 2011 Giants both managed to make it this far. In fairness, I did have the 2007 Giants number 22 on my list, not 23. But Kyle, number 23 on our list. Where are you going?
Yeah, well, the thing is that I believe these are the 3 6 seeds to win Super Bowls this century, right? I don't know if there's another one. Maybe the Ravens.
Well, the Packers.
The Packers, that's right.
Mm-hmm.
So I got the 2007 Giants here. This was a pretty mediocre team. They started really hot. They went 6-2, then they went 4-4 down the stretch. But their 2 best offensive games of the season were the last 2 games of the year. They scored 38 points on the Bills, and then they lost 35-38 to the Patriots when the Patriots completed their undefeated regular season. And then they kind of just got hot in the postseason. Like you said, Eli Manning pulled out some plays, and they got to the point where they made the Super Bowl and they won, and that defensive line took over in the Super Bowl.
Yeah, it's just a weird year. The way that this team was able to do it, and again, they had to go into Lambeau and win that football game. That was not easy to do. To beat Brett Favre would not be the only time they would go into Lambeau and win a playoff game. But still, and you think about who they had to beat. The Buccaneers, okay, fine, they were solid that year, but they weren't great. Going to Dallas, winning that game, going to Lambeau, winning that one, and then beating the Patriots, the best team ever, debatably, this undefeated team. I mean, the fact that they were able to pull that off is, that at least means they can't be last on this list. Just that win alone, they have to at least be second last.
Yeah, that's probably true.
Mhm.
Yeah, they managed to put it together at the end, and they pulled off the greatest upset in NFL history. So, you know, that probably is the reason, like you said, they're not last. But there was also good players on this team. Like Brandon Jacobs had a pretty good season that year. Plexico Burris was a real guy on the outside. Amani Toomer was an outside guy who was really good too. Osi Umenyiora was an Pro Bowler that year. And Justin Tuck, Michael Strahan. That was a really good group of guys on the defensive line.
Yeah. Was Eli Manning even that particularly good this year?
I don't think so.
Yeah,
Let's look at 3,300 yards, 23 touchdowns, 20 interceptions. So no.
yeah. Not the it was again 2011, which we will give Eli his flowers for what he was able to do. And he did have, again, against Tampa and against Dallas, he played well, but even in the two conference championships, passer rating of 72, or the two conference championship and the Super Bowl, it's a passer rating of 72 against Green Bay, and then of 87.3 against New England. It's not like he was great those games either.
Yeah. Wonder what his passer rating would have been if they called holding on the helmet catch.
Okay. All right. Yeah, sure. I think the interception that was probably the bigger one to point to.
Yeah, if Asante Samuel caught the ball, that would have helped too.
Yeah, could have helped. Let's talk about one, which was a legitimate great run by Eli. In 2011. Another, both these teams are kind of like, I don't know exactly how that team won, and they both beat the Patriots, which is just also weird that this happened. But the 25th scoring defense in football, led by Eli Manning, that's not a team that you think screams out and says, "Oh, Super Bowl winner." But they did have, Eli played great this year. This is for the Giants fans who are pounding the table saying Eli deserves to be in the Hall of Fame. This is the year you point to.
I can't believe this team won a Super Bowl, man. I was so mad. I can't believe they did it to us twice. And Victor Cruz, Hakeem Nicks, they put in very good seasons. Eli Manning put in a very good season. Like you said, he had an incredible playoff run. I still can't believe this team did it. I still can. And I don't know how this happened. I'm still sick to my stomach thinking about these two seasons. And yeah, I just thought this team was worse than the other team, honestly.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, they weren't they weren't great. I think that, listen, still had Justin Tuck. They had Jason Pierre-Paul this year, but really it was just, I mean, it was Eli willing this team. They won 9 games this year. I mean, this was not a great team, but Eli had a great postseason run. And again, with that the fumble in the Niners playoff game, that certainly helped. But again, they were able to go into Lambeau. This kind of started this is the first year of what would start to be a trend of the Aaron Rodgers losing playoff games we fully expect them to win.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it really was. And, just to put in comparison, this Giants team had 2 Pro Bowlers, one being Eli Manning on votes, and one All-Pro in Jason Pierre-Paul, against the Patriots, who had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, let me see if I can, 6, 7, 8 Pro Bowlers. And you could also throw in 2 All-Pro, 3 All-Pro players on that team. And just unbelievable.
Yeah, and that wasn't a great Patriots team either, 2011. Like,
no.
Was that not one of their better ones? They still won, but was that, correct me if I'm wrong, was that Julian Edelman in his cornerback era?
I got to look at the defensive stats. I don't know if he ended up playing defense that year.
Okay.
Let me see. Let's just go by that.
Well, but again, listen, like we said earlier, better to be last on this list than to not be on this list at all. I'm sure Giants fans feel, again, that's part of what I loved about those Giants teams, to be honest, again, as a neutral fan, was like seeing this team that wasn't that great, just finding ways to will their way to a victory. There's something fun in that. You don't want to see that every year, but seeing it the way that we saw it and seeing them beat the evil empire twice, as a neutral who was never a Patriots hater or a Patriots fan, it was always fun.
Yeah. Edelman did play some defense that year. He wasn't much of an offensive player. That was Wes Welker, Rob Gronkowski, Aaron Hernandez, Deion Branch.
Yeah. But yeah, either way. Kyle, that's our list.
Yeah, that is our list. Don't think there's too much controversy with that, honestly. I thought that was a pretty good list. We did a good job.
Yeah, people will say that their favorite team should have been higher. Of course, it's hard. It's hard to figure it out. It's hard to do it, and there's different ways you could view it. But either way, I think you're right. I think we nailed it. Perfect
Yeah,
list.
we are perfect. This is the perfect podcast. You're
Uh,
welcome.
yes. Also, if you like perfect list, next week we'll be doing our top 10 quarterback rankings. I still got a little bit of tape I got to watch for that. But top 10 quarterback rankings. I'm excited to see if Stetson Bennett ends up at number 1 on your list, Kyle.
He is not going to. I'll break that news right now. Stetson Bennett is
Okay.
not my number 1 quarterback. But
All
I'm
right.
excited to talk quarterbacks next week. Ready for the draft stuff. Ready for the NFL draft. We're all excited. Everyone's talking about it. Everyone has debates. Everyone has opinions. This should be good stuff.
Yeah, very excited for all of this. Everyone, again, thank you for watching. Kyle, any final thoughts?
No final thoughts. Itching for some football. And, let's get into the offseason. Let's get it going.
Yeah, so let's get it going. Thank you to everybody. We do appreciate it. Oh wait, gotta let them know where they can find us on Twitter before we head out.
Yeah, make sure to follow us on Twitter. That is at Jackson Kruger. Make sure to follow me at by Kyle Gronin. And make sure to follow the account page at On the Sideline JK. That's at On the Sideline JK.
Yes, of course. If you like audio only podcasts, anywhere you get the audio only podcast, this one is available on the Sideline Podcast every Wednesday throughout the off season. So be on the lookout for that. Again, thank you to everybody for listening or watching. We appreciate it. And until next time, have a good one.
Peace.